everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Story Time with Shiloh.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Today we'll be reading How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a whole lot. But the Grinch who lived just north of Whoville did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the woos, staring down from his cave with a sour grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's particularly here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh, the noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise, the noise, the noise, the noise. Then the Who's, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast and they'd feast, and they'd feast and feast and feast some more. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together, with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing and they'd sing and they'd sing and they'd sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop the whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? And then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a Santa Claus coat. And he chuckled and he clucked, what a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer, the Grinch looked around. But since reindeers are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the Grinch? Oh no, the Grinch simply said. If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn to the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and then he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, giddy up, and the sleigh started down to the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed. And he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Popguns, bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beefs. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash, while the Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee, and now Grinch grinned, "I'll stuff up the tree." Then the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou, who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by the tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. But she stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree, why?" But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie, and he thought of it quick. "Why, my little sweetheart," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there and I'll bring it back here." This he fibbed, fooled the child. Then he patted her head and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for the fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and wire. And then the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing with the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, and all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a-snooze, when he packed up his sled. Packed it up with their presents, their ribbons, their wrappings, their tags, and their tinsel, their trimmings, and their trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, he was grinchily humming. They're finding out now that there's no Christmas coming. They're just waking up, I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down the Whoville will all cry boo-hoo. "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising up from the snow. It started out low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry very. He started down the Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without presents at all. It hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came somewhere or other. It just came the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzled. How could this be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags, and he puzzled for 3 hours till the puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Merry Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whistled with his load down the bright morning light. And he brought back bags and toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beef. The end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Thanks for watching Child TV. See you next time.
Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can see more magical stories. See you next time. Bye.